What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out a 15-year-old video of Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, this might hold some controversial thoughts, so take this with a grain of salt. Let's get to it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright, so we gotta address this. I've been making a whole lot of Vivek Ramaswamy videos recently, and for the most part I've praised him, and obviously I'm not the only one who's been doing that. A lot of people have been covering Vivek, let's be real, he's been a viral machine. His recent media tour, going to literally every single show that'll have him on, has been incredible to follow. He's done a fantastic job, and I have to admit, there's been a little bit of a political honeymoon environment surrounding him as a candidate and him as a person. But then, of course, in every single video on Vivek, you see it in the comments section. Obviously, I see it, you see it all over Twitter as well. Vivek is bought and paid for. He's a Soros shill. He's funded by George Soros.
I've gotten those as well.
He's a WEF plant. People get this weird feeling with Vivek, as if his political rise is less than organic, as if he's a political product, a package, sent to secretly do the bidding of others. And I personally have been rather dismissive of that idea, even though secretly it's been at the back of my mind to a certain extent. I haven't really seen like conclusive evidence or a major red flag, but I do have to admit that this video that's currently going viral is a little bit weird. Do I think that it's proof of a greater conspiracy? No, of course not, but it is a little bit weird. So I want to show you guys the clip that everyone's posting of Vivek Ramaswamy on TV during the early 2000s asking then candidate Al Sharpton a question during a presidential town hall in the midst of election season. Take a look.
Question, go ahead. Reverend Sharpton, hello, I'm Vivek, and I want to ask you, last week on the show we had Senator Kerry, and this week, and the week before we had Senator Edwards, and my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience.
Good answer.
I got involved in the political movement when I was 12 years old. And I've been involved in social policy for the last 30 years. So don't confuse people that have a job with political experience.
Now, obviously, there's a bunch of things that people are pointing their finger to. Why is Vivek present during a Democrat event? Why did they choose Vivek to ask a question in the first place? And the biggest, I guess, oddity of this clip is the fact that there was another familiar face who asked a question as well.
Congressman, why are you the only presidential candidate not attending tomorrow's youth-oriented Rock the Vote Forum? And do you think young people's votes matter in your campaign?
They matter a lot. That's why I'm here tonight. And I've got to be in Iowa. I had a preset meeting that I've got to go to. I got to win Iowa. I'm going to win Iowa, so I'm going to be in Iowa tomorrow night. But I talk to young people everywhere I am. I've got lots of young people on my campaign, and maybe I ought to say this now. When I was in college, Jack Kennedy was president. And I was moved when he said to young people like me, get involved in politics. Give part of your life to politics. So I just want to say to all of you here, get involved in public life. Give back to your country. Don't just take from it. And get involved in this campaign. If it's not for me, get behind somebody and get out there and work and make this country a better place. You can do.
And of course, what do you think the reaction is? Pete Buttigieg and Vivek Ramaswamy both happen to be publicly asking questions during a Democrat presidential event. How odd. And I have to admit, it is a little bit weird. Is it possible that it's just a massive coincidence? Absolutely. Is it possible that there's a logical explanation that both of these individuals were stellar academics involved in activities and public speaking, and those were the kinds of young people who were being pulled on the stage, so it just happened to be these two? Of course, to an extent, that's a logical explanation, but then there's also the question that maybe these two characters were pre-selected and were being primed to enter the world of politics.
And there's another video floating of Vivek Ramaswamy flip-flopping in his words, like he had said in a previous video that climate change is a real thing. And recently he said climate change is a hoax. So people are trying to show why he might be real or why he might be fake. I don't know which way to stand at this point, but there's been no sufficient evidence yet. Even in the videos we had seen, it's like people took out very tiny clips to try to mince what he was talking about. So that would not be like a full evidence of what Vivek might have said.
That they're simply actors, part of this massive political scheme to eventually put political puppets in positions of power to represent elitist interest. And obviously it's not just this one moment in isolation. There's also the infamous Vivek WEF, let's call it, connection. He was on a list of the 2021 class of young global leaders. As well as this, the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowships for New Americans, I guess, Foundation. Back in 2011, Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, was given a mention of some sort. And he addressed these issues. I think he even filed legal action against the WEF for supposedly naming him without permission.
The World Economic Forum has now officially agreed to exactly what I demanded of them. They've issued a public apology. They have further, more importantly, made a hard commitment that they will never add someone to this young global leader or similar list without express consent again, making sure they're not going to get away with these dirty tricks. And though I wasn't in this for the money, there was also a financial component to the settlement. What I've said is the money that
You were not in it for the money, and there was hey, that's politicking. Tell us, they give you money, yeah, come and give me the money then. If you don't want the money, bring it to me, since it's not about the financial component. I mean, I'm just saying.
I got out of that, I don't want that money. I'm directing it to the America First Policy Institute. The institute that probably was the most opposite of the World Economic Forum's agenda, to which I've been a donor over recent years.
And so all in all, you know, I get the skepticism, especially for somebody who's branding himself as anti-establishment. There seems to be a little bit of an unfortunate pattern. And for a lot of people, for a lot of skeptical voters, it's a massive red flag. And I 100%, at least to a certain extent, agree. But then at the same time, I also have a lot of doubts and I also disagree. You know, I think at one point, Donald Trump took a massive loan from George Soros. I think it was something like $180 million for a project that he was doing at the time. You know, people don't claim that Donald Trump's campaign is being funded by Soros, or that he's Soros funded. It could just be that if you're engaged in big business and politics in general, that at some point you're going to come into contact with many of these big elitist individuals. And especially if you have a past of being apolitical, well, obviously in that past you don't really care where the money's coming from. You're just trying to get the job done. So there could be an explanation. It's also fishy at the same time. I kind of land in the middle where I don't know what to believe. Am I willing to instantly disqualify Vivek Ramaswamy? I don't think so. Also, I don't think it's necessarily that relevant because he's not going to be president. Unless, of course, something dramatically changes. You know, all in all, it's hard to form a concrete...
A lot of people are saying this too, that he cannot win over Trump especially. I mean, people are beginning to speak about Vivek more than DeSantis these days, but DeSantis is still a very formidable candidate. So I don't think Vivek might even win over DeSantis.
Opinion here, because the evidence just simply doesn't cross the threshold. It seems like most of what is being presented can in fact have another explanation that isn't Vivek is a bought and paid for Soros plant. A lot of people also point to the book that he wrote in 2020, claiming that he's anti-Trump and now grifting, pretending to be pro-Trump. But I don't think that's a very strong argument. I think there's a lot of people who sort of had political awakening moments, especially over the last 8 years. You know, I'm not going to discredit or attack somebody because they don't have absolute allegiance to one political figure or ideology, or because there's recent evidence of a political evolution when it comes to their stances. I mean, I've changed considerably over the last, let's call it 2 years. I think remaining ideologically malleable, if anything, is a sign of intellect, and more importantly, intellectual honesty. So I guess all of that, you know, going in circles, the end conclusion for me on this issue is, I don't friggin' know. Are there red flags? Yes. Are they 100% convincing? No, not exactly, but it is certainly a little bit of a weird situation. And I think ultimately, it's obviously going to have an impact on Vivek's, let's call it, electability, especially in the Republican nomination process. It simply is what it is. Some people are going to believe that he's a plant, others won't, and obviously that'll hamper his ability to ever win the nomination as the Republican presidential candidate. That's pretty much it. My apologies if you guys were expecting me to take a hardline stance on this one, but that's pretty much what I got. Thanks.
So that was another very good video by Liberal Hiveman. I'll put the link to the channel in the description. He made very, very good points, and I do understand why he cannot take a stand, because so far there's been no evidence or no facts to directly correlate Vivek with WEF. It's just all speculative and just people saying he is, you know, related to them. But I don't particularly think so. Even the video we had seen previously asking if Vivek is real or fake, those videos were made up of clips that were cut. You know, if you want to prove something like that, you have to give us like full clips so we understand the context and hear what he was actually asked and what he responded in its entirety. but those ones were just clips that were manipulated. At least it looked to me like they were manipulated. Well, let me know what you think about that. It's the end of this one. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
I made this bed on my own.